Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of If You Know, You Know Show, the show for Web3 creators and enthusiasts. I am Belle, co founder of NFT Girl and Mini Wells, and the host of If You Know, You Know Show. This show is brought to you by Mini Wells and Tao. Mini Wells is an adult gaming ecosystem for Web3 creators and aspiring wells. Our mission is to connect Web3 creators to consumers. Tao is a BRC20 token that unlocks the highest utility within the Mini Wells ecosystem. Anyone that owns at least 500 Tao tokens gets to unlock super duper great VIP privileges on the Mini Wells island once it is fully open. We're in beta right now, but you can go up to sign up for a username and start unlocking a little bit of the ecosystem. If this is your first time tuning in, you picked a really good one because at the end of the show, I'm going to be giving away 10 whitelist opportunities for pizza pets. So you do have to be present to win, but go ahead and start dropping those Taproot wallets down in the comments. I'll be picking 5 from the live stream and then 5 from the actual X space. So with no further ado, let's get into it. Like I said, if you know, you know, I do this show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I always have on here, always bring you amazing different guests. Oh, one can't connect. All right, that's okay. Well, we are going to be live streaming today as well as live on X Spaces. Billy, hello, friend. How are you?
What's up? I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. I'm so glad you could join us today. All right. So let's see if we can get Sabet is also going to be joining us, as well as Gabe. Gabe is having a little bit of problem though connecting. So it's all good. We are going to wait. Gabe, if you're listening, so you just drop off and then drop back on. Although Gabe is having a little bit of technical issues. Gabe, if you just want to log on straight onto Spaces, you are more than welcome to do so. All right, Billy. You are the man of the hour, the guest. I'm super excited.
I mean, I also happen to be a digital artist where these guys are physical painters, and I don't know if that has something to do with it. A little bit of tech never hurt anyone.
A little bit of tech. I know that's true. All right, Gabe, I see you trying to connect. We got you, Gabe.
Yes. Making it look routine. I'm in the windiest place in the world. Power's gone out this morning. I feel like I'm live on location, like on a hurricane.
But you're reporting?
I'm reporting live from the hurricane. We will survive this.
Gabe's always on the move.
Gabe is forever on the move. What's going on? Like, is it like a weather thing that your power's out, or?
Yeah, it's literally. It's just hard to describe how windy it is.
Well, no, we can hear it.
Yeah. So I'm in the studio. I'm gonna close the door. I'm gonna hope that it blocks it, and we're gonna have a blast with some legends today.
I know, we sure as hell are. All right. Well, hey, you jumped through hoops in order to
right?
jump in. Yeah, you really did jump through hoops in order to get here. So I appreciate you, Gabe. We're going to start with you because you did jump through the hoops. Billy was the first to connect, but you are working for it today.
I couldn't agree more.
Gabe, every freaking body in Web3 should already know who you are and what you do in the space, but I'd love for you to reintroduce yourself in case, somebody isn't familiar.
So I'm here in the Bay Area, windiest place on earth, apparently. I do cubism, did a project called the Stoics. Also, Billy and I just did an awesome project in May together on Ordinals on Bitcoin. So those are 2 of my biggest projects. My project on ETH was called the Stoics, a 5K PFP. And then Billy and I did 2,000 Ordinals in May. And I've been around for 4 years. Tried to go to as many events as possible. Just FOMO'd into Marfa for next week. So I'm heading to Texas, to the Wild West of Texas next week. But I will say I've been all in on Web3 going on 4 years.
You really have. You really, really have. You've been all in. I want to talk to you later on in the conversation of how you've been able to, for real, tap into the community building side of it. I feel like when you came out with Stoics, I actually had you on the show before you launched Stoics. And I remember having a conversation about the community building aspect of it. And so by the time that you launched Stoics, you were able to have just a huge group of supporters and a huge group of people who were willing to just really ride with you through that journey. And I think that as we go into this new cycle, both of you have been around enough to know that we have, cycles. Today is a historic, if you will, say day. A new president has just been, selected and voted in. And obviously, we see that through all of the charts. Billy, I want to go to you because you are heavy in ordinals. You've partnered, ordinals is your thing, You've made a name for yourself in the ordinal ecosystem. And out of all of the groups, everyone is talking about BTC, 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 and how it has positively impacted the crypto ecosystem, digital artists, and our bags, more importantly. So Billy, how you feeling? What do you?
Yeah, Belle, the pump is real today.
Yeah.
I think everyone's kind of feeling the pump, whether you are, happy, sad, you got to respect the pump. Where does that leave kind of assets on these networks and stuff? I think it's just awesome to have the option to, put your art on Bitcoin instead of Arweave or another place. And I think that's just people are kind of waking up to that every day. Base is pretty hot right now. It seems like a lot of people are kind of going to the path of least resistance, kind of no fees, get work on there quickly, get it out quickly. Bitcoin's kind of that slow burn. And as you said, I've just been kind of deep in the ecosystem for a long time and just a massive Bitcoiner. And it's been Bitcoin's year for sure. I think, ETH might pick up some steam here possibly, but it's just kind of been non-existent this bull market. So we'll see what happens. But it's nice to see things pumping. It seems like people are like, all right, it's go time. I'm going to start collecting some of these older Ordinal projects. And there's just a lot of projects dropping. Everyone's kind of excited about runes. I see a lot of artists trading meme coins. Got no issues with that at all. You gotta fill in the gaps in between drops and that sort of thing. But ultimately super positive. I wish there was more kind of crossover in the kind of crypto art world, which is why I'm heading to Marfa as well. Gabe, see you there. First timer, a little intimidated. Like you gotta fly into El Paso and then drive 2.5 hours. But I'm into that kind of high friction environment. I love generative art. Not only do I collect stuff, but I make it as well. And just kind of want to change the pace a little bit. Some of the Ordinals conferences were getting a little bit redundant in a way, like probably just don't want to hear me talk about, my generative art stuff. But it'll be fun to kind of attend something as just kind of like just meeting people, talking about art, talking about, just art on Bitcoin and kind of pushing that narrative to some folks who maybe haven't yet looked at it.
I think it's interesting because so first of all, it's going to be my first time going to Marfa as well. So we're going to be popping that cherry, at the same time. Seriously, it's the first time that I'm going, but I'm super duper excited to go because it's Marfa, and I feel like the true people, if the artists and the artist community and the supporters of it really do congregate in Marfa to talk about art and how why art is so important, right? And why it's at the forefront, and why it's why you can continue to degen and you can get into meme coins and you can do all of that, but at the end of the day, bring it back to art, and specifically generative art. I think that's a super important conversation. Gabe, Marfa, since we're on that subject, you've been there before. You're heavy into conferences. What makes Marfa so different than all of the other ones?
I think high friction is probably the best way to describe it. I think Gary Vee did a good job when it was like in Indianapolis and Minneapolis for VCons. Was kind of like I like both of those conferences a lot when you're kind of going somewhere. Like I love NFT NYC, but it's crazy. It's like there's hundreds of parties and you can't wrap your head around it. In Marfa, there's like 3 bars, and then there's like the one block where like Glitch Marfa and Art Blocks and stuff have their thing. So a lot easier to wrap your head around getting to everything. I think just because of accommodations, there aren't as many hotels. You have to fly into El Paso. It just means that if you're there, you actually really, really care about it versus like, oh, I'm gonna go see a Broadway show and a baseball game and then happen to go to NFT NYC. It's like if you're going through all of this, like it's because you genuinely care about art. Or, I think that's the premise of going into it, of why I went last year, and I'm like, this year I was debating it, but they got me again.
They got you. I want to, while you describe that, hold on. You mentioned VCon and I remembered.
Yes.
22.
22. Early.
That's awesome. It's always impressive how Gabe is just like whipping stuff out, just drawing from his mind. Is like, here you go. It's pretty impressive, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And explain how people get those.
You gotta meet me at one of these conferences, and then I used to do it a lot more as far as like actively. Now it's kind of, I usually have a sketch pad on me, and so if people ask, it happens. But I mean, I think the Stoics did as well as it did because the vast majority of people got a drawing for me at VCon, and like the white list was in the back, in a little like QR code hidden. And so I think it just goes a long way, and we're seeing it when the pullback and the bear market. It's like, I think if you look at like Billy's market, like people that show up and like people have a connection to, still get to stick around and make art. And if you don't, and if you're just used as a pump tool by crypto bros for like 1 week, then it's just really hard to have any kind of lasting impact or get to keep putting stuff out. So I've kind of gone all in on being human. I also think AI art is gonna get crazy good. I mean, it's already good, but 5 years from now, it's gonna be so important to be a human face. And if we just do it based purely on the aesthetics of art, I think most artists are going to have a hard time playing in a playground where someone can spin up 10,000 incredible images by just typing in a few words.
Yeah, I think more than ever, curation and ideas are going to be more forefront than they've ever been. But speaking on what you were just saying, it's really cool. Like in Marfa, it's what, Art Blocks Weekend? Is that what the whole thing is kind of called? It's just been really cool how Art Blocks has been this just kind of bellwether institution almost in the NFT space and art scene. And I just remember from, the early days of NFTs, from kind of Beeple kind of exploding, and then just kind of everything going nuts, insane valuations, people selling Fidenzas for 500 ETH, and just wild crazy stuff. And then seeing the kind of asset class kind of purge 90% of stuff, there was just a lot of froth. But to see 3-4 years later to see like that art hold its value. And to me, that's a lot of signal. A lot of people collect fast and hard. People are grinding in Discord to mint stuff, flip stuff. But what that showed me is like the real art stuck around and held its value. And that's something I've always been interested in this space for sure.
What is it about generative art on Bitcoin that was special to you, Billy?
I think when we kind of bumped into some of the friction of file size, right now fees are low, so you can actually get a high-res image relatively affordably. But when fees inevitably spike, like we know they can, and they can just sustain those levels for a long period of time, code-based art is just super, super powerful, huge unlock on Bitcoin. With just a few lines of code and recursion, you can create a large-scale collection that actually has a lot of dynamic nature to it. And kind of like Fusion, what we did, like we're just pulling data from the Satoshi that represents the tokenization of the artwork, feeding that back into the artwork to help create the artwork. And that's just kind of like a fun meta you can play around with. But with that, we were able to create a lot of unique outputs from kind of running it through the algorithm with a different SAT number. And we kind of required everyone to inscribe with rare sats. So that was just kind of another fun thing you can do. It's endless. I mean, I'm tinkering with some stuff right now, working on an edition that I'm going to release through Gamma. It's called Super Cycle. It's going to be super fun, but there's just so many different ways you can kind of attack it. And I think it's just a very, at its core, Bitcoin is code, right? It's software. So I think it's kind of poetic to put more code on Bitcoin and have it be immutable.
What about the fees associated to it?
Yeah, it's super, super affordable. Yeah, one of my first large scale generative projects on Bitcoin, BitBlocks, it costs like 30 cents per bit block for people to inscribe on Bitcoin. And then Fusion, kind of similar thing. The file size was even smaller. The largest expense really was just the fee to use Ordinals bot inscribing service. But that kind of is a game changer because there was just this stigma like, oh, at 500 sats per VByte, a 400 kilobyte image, which is super small for any digital artist. So like, whoa, I have to get it down to 400 kilobytes. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Even that could be thousands and thousands of dollars. So it was a bit daunting. And, but a lot of people have come over and worked with the medium, and they found a way to get their artwork on Bitcoin. And I think if you can, you should. It's not a requirement. People can use whatever chain they like, but for me, I feel like it's the most kind of self-contained place for digital art, digital artifacts that kind of makes the most sense to me.
Gabe, on that note, I want to ask you on your journey on the Ordinals ecosystem. You was super well recognized on Ethereum artist, and what was it about the Ordinals ecosystem that even caught your eye? And did you like it? Any regrets? How has it been? And I ask from the perspective that I still talk to artists that are like, that shit just seems way too complicated. I'm not going to do it. What would you say to that?
I mean, I've always done kind of graffiti on dollar bills, and so this was the most obvious like analogy, I think, or like metaphor for the same thing, which is I just think if I had my say, probably every NFT I've ever done would have been an ordinal instead. I think I love the fact that it's like graffiti on real money, and it's kind of on the daddy chain. So there is friction there, but I think going back to, and not like there aren't degens and runes and Bitcoin, but I think maybe less so yet because of the friction. There's more of a chance to get real art, like art enthusiasts there. And I don't know if they're there yet. I mean, think Billy's probably done the best or up there with the best of any artist as far as kind of pushing ordinals. The second I heard about it, so I went to the very first ordinal meetup with Casey when ordinals were less than 2 weeks old. And then I was working with Brooke Lacey. I was trying to get one of the first 10K, and I think by the time I got my first ordinals in, it was like I think they're like 110,000. So I was super early. I still have three that I put up like very very early, and then tried did one of one auction, and I think I was the very first auction on Magic Eden for an ordinal, so it didn't exactly do what I thought it was going to do compared to like what one of my paintings does. But I mean, our fusion project did really well. Been trying to figure out kind of my next play on ordinals. I'll probably pick Billy's brain next week and Marfa, because this guy's really the genius when it comes to this stuff. And I think my whole career prior in community organizing and in art, it's like I think I'm really good at kind of seeing talent and then also seeing good people. So like Billy and I met before ordinals existed and kind of hit it off based on us both having deep appreciation for our wives. And so like I was like, this is a good dude, and I just followed him for Twitter for a long time, and I was like, at a minimum, he'll answer some questions for me. And then I pitched him on the sort of the rough outline of fusion, and then just us kind of iterating back and forth. Like, I'm pretty proud of how it turned out, but given my choice, I'd rather maybe not everything is a collab, but I really do love like working with people that are maybe smarter on the tech side than me, and in Billy's case a lot smarter on the tech side than me. But like, going back to good people, there's a lot of, we've all been here long enough to see how many scammers and kind of people in it just for kind of the money or for the ego. And so, I'd like to think my first big thing on ordinals was a pretty big success, and hoping to kind of follow it up with some cool other drops in the next year.
So you were inscribing in the era of spreadsheets and communicating with collectors via OTC and
I sold one of my one-of-ones for half of a Bitcoin, but it was in the spreadsheet era, and did not receive the half Bitcoin. So what can you do? But it was the Wild West, but it just instantly scratched an itch for me, because it was like permanent graffiti on something that's going to be around, I think, for a long time.
Gabe, I have a question. I mean, obviously the you mentioned the one-of-one auction on Magic Eden, which was, pretty early on. And I feel like there was just a different kind of culture in this new kind of Bitcoin renaissance, assets on Bitcoin. Do you think that people on other chains, such as, Ethereum, do you anticipate people getting more involved, or are they so invested, I'm talking about the big collectors you see on Twitter who have pretty much built a brand or a name for themselves by collecting all of these, massive pieces, all these big NFTs on ETH. I guess my question is, like, how do you view the different cultures? And do you think some of that's going to cross over? Because personally, I feel like the collector culture on Bitcoin is a little bit different. And I think it can evolve, but it's nowhere near where kind of collecting art on ETH is, in my opinion.
I think that's right. And I've talked to some very big collectors on it, and they don't see necessarily a reason for ordinals. But I guess I think some of it is, do you care about disruption a little bit? Like, I think Bitcoin is a lot more disruptive because it's actually putting money on or putting art on money in a way that I don't think an NFT really is. So I think it'll be dependent on us artists too, though, on how good of art we decide to put on there. Because I do think at some fundamental level, people like really good art, and if the really good art is there to be collected on Bitcoin, I think you'll see a shift. But until we kind of step up, and I mean, there's less than probably 20 artists that I would say have made like deep impacts in the Bitcoin space. Maybe I'm not being generous enough, but like it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like there's been enough that are pushing kind of the relevance. I think you do probably the best, if I'm being honest, as far as talking about why it matters and like being cool with like you spend a lot of time educating in a way that like I don't really enjoy.
Wait, who said I enjoy it?
Well, at a minimum, you're good at it. I kept telling my wife, like, he's so good at articulating this thing, whereas like I'm just like, we made really good art. Buy our Ordinal. It's quite a bit better than the other stuff here.
I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like Bitcoin is 15 years old now, but all this stuff is relatively new. The idea of digital scarcity, I just try and think deep into the future. Like my kids, what's going to be around in 50 years? A lot of these models that require like a token to kind of power to incentivize people to store the data. Like, I don't know. I see a lot of those kind of breaking down into the future. So yeah, for me, it's just about, I really believe Bitcoin's going to outlive me. It just passed silver as like total market cap. It's over $1.4 trillion right now, whereas ETH is lagging at just like around 300 billion. So it's kind of taken off from, last year or 2 years ago, ETH flipping Bitcoin to like, what happened? What went wrong? Welcome, Sabet.
Yeah, I wanted
Hey,
to
good to have you.
Bet. Hello.
Hi, Belle. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for joining us today. Super excited to have you with us.
Sorry, I'm traveling and I kind of messed up the hours.
It's okay. That's all right. That's all right.
I'm an hour ahead or behind or something. I'm in Arizona, so I have no idea what day or what time it is.
Daytime savings plus traveling. I don't blame you at all.
Okay.
It's all good.
Daylight savings. Can we just get rid of it?
Yeah, right. Or keep it. One of the things.
One of them, right? And my daughter has been asking me all week, so tell me again, like why and how? And I'm just like, sweetheart, I don't know. I just know that this is the time, and why I don't know, and what that means I don't know. I just know this is the time, and that's what we're going by. No, I don't get it. But Sabet, you jumped in right on time. We were talking about Bitcoin and the importance of ordinals and why art on Bitcoin matters. I'd love for you to introduce yourself just real quick and then just jump right in the conversation because you have been heavy on ordinals as well.
Yeah, I have. How you doing? So I'm Ali Sabet. What's up, Gabe? I'm an artist. I've been an artist and a designer for over 25 years. And I've been blessed enough to do pretty well in NFTs, initially on ETH, and moved on to pretty much every other chain there was. And Ordinals was the last place that I kind of found a home. I still, work on other chains, but I really do love being on Ordinals because of the fact that I know that the art's going to be there forever. My focus purely is art with, some additional things around it, but mostly it's focused on the art and IP. So for me, it's just always been important to make sure that art's going to stay for as long as possible, not dealing with IFPS or Airwave, whatever the other. Arweave. Yeah. So I don't even know where that is, but I know we use it sometimes. So knowing that I can put the art and it's going to stay there forever is pretty cool. And, it's a mother chain. So the chain's going to be there forever. So it's
Yeah,
pretty exciting. I don't have a huge deep answer, but if you have any questions, maybe I'll get there.
I got a question. I mean, we have two kind of physical artists here. I guess, like, how do you guys look at it when you're, how do you preserve a physical painting? As far as if you're storing it in your house could get burned down, it could be stolen. I guess, how do you guys look at, has blockchain, NFTs, ordinals, has that been a place to kind of preserve your artwork, maybe tokenize it so you can move it around the world faster? Like, is that a means to, I guess, kind of like, what's your impetus for taking something physical and getting it digital?
For me, going through all my physical paintings, one, I'm not storing them the right way. They are not stored safely. They are stacked on top of each other. There's so much of it. There's thousands and thousands of pieces, hundreds of canvases. Obviously, not thousands of canvases, but it's taken over my house. Whether it's on the walls or it's taken over one of the garages, and my other garage is my studio. Half of that is all canvases. So to be able to create probably another 1,000 pieces over the past 4 years digitally and store it online and not really worry about where it sits physically is really a relief in a lot of ways for me. Transporting it, saving, sending it to people, it's another part. And then knowing that I'm totally okay with prints. I actually called my signed prints hand embellished originals, because I feel like if I sign them, they're different each time. So it's a really amazing thing to be able to do it. Do I like physicals? Yeah, I love physicals. When I find a piece that's in between, like Gabe probably has a bunch in between yellow pages. I got hundreds of sketchbooks. When I open those and see what's happening in those, there's a different kind of mystery and a vibe and a feeling than looking through my iPad and going, "Oh, I never minted this." There's definitely a different feeling there. Uh, but from a storage aspect and moving it around, it makes it a lot easier, and it makes it, the fact that it's going to be there forever and my kids can find it and my grandkids can find it. It's pretty cool.
From the collector's perspective, Gabe, you mentioned something that, not everybody's convinced, right? I'm a big reader. And there's nothing like having a book, an actual book in your hand. And, you can put it on your Kindle and you can digitize it as much as you want. And it's just not, I don't know if it's because I'm just used to it, of the book, but there's something about having a library full of books in your house versus being able to flip through a Kindle. And so I see a lot of that same perspective on the digital art side as well. How do you convince your traditional collectors to view it in the same way and love it in the same way as they do traditional canvas?
Personally, I don't know if you do. I don't know how many people I brought over. I mean, I got like 120,000 followers on Instagram, but I don't know how many of them have bought one of my NFTs. It almost seems like separate worlds, where X is where my digital life is and Instagram is where the physical is. I think my kid has grown up his whole life with digital assets, and like when he asks for money, it's like Robux to make his avatar extra dope. So like I think it's going to be less about converting people and more that the new generation is going to have grown up with digital scarcity and digital ownership for their whole life, and so it's going to be easy for them. But I guess I'm not one of these people who believes you're going to get someone who's collected paintings and is in their 60s. I don't think we're going to have a strong conversion rate. I think it's going to be the people that are digitally native. A question I had kind of for Billy, but like it felt like ETH whales understood that they needed to push NFTs to prove why Ethereum was important. Whereas when I would get on Bitcoin spaces early on in Ordinals, it was the opposite. Like I remember one of them, I got called like a grifter because I was interested in putting ordinals on, and like we were both at the the Bitcoin convention in Nashville this summer, and where all three of us were there, and I mean, there was a tiny section for ordinals, but it doesn't feel like the average Bitcoiner feels like there's a reason to have ordinals. Whereas if you're an Ethereum whale, like there's a reason to have an NFT narrative. And so I'm curious if you see Bitcoiners kind of finding Jesus when it comes to ordinals, or is it going to keep being a very small subsection of the over? I mean, you talked about market cap, but like if it doesn't matter if everyone on Ethereum's market cap thinks in NFTs and only 1% of the Bitcoin like market cap thinks in the terms of ordinals.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I just feel like maybe that larger cohort of Bitcoiners have spent so much time like hating NFTs. It's just going to take them a long time to embrace them on their own chain, you know? And I felt it, like ETH was on fire. You had NFTs, you had DeFi summer. I got involved instead of on the sidelines saying it's a scam, blah, 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 blah. I was like, hey, this is actually viable. People are using it. People are collecting. You know, I'm going to try and put my artwork there and see what happens. So, yeah, I think the people that kind of embraced it and kind of understood it, it was really easy to kind of transition to ordinals where maybe you wanted to be in the first place, but you just took a little detour. But, yeah, for the other people, I think the culture is kind of shifting before our eyes. And I think that's a really positive thing. The Bitcoin maxis kind of dominated the chain for a long time. Instead of like helping to educate and protect people, I feel like they just kind of pushed people away. And I feel like that kind of culture is changing. I'm happy to be part of that culture where it's like, yeah, like all chains are cool. I just prefer this one. I'm probably going to like put my artwork there. But yeah, I guess to answer the question, like, yeah, it is a small sub sector, but I do foresee it growing as people get more used to these assets being on Bitcoin. You know, there's lending and borrowing. There's 2 token protocol standards that have hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, just kind of transferring daily. Pretty much a lot of the stuff we've seen on ETH as just kind of like, you know, test net, so to speak. But I think, yeah, it's just kind of a acceptance. They're just going to have to accept it and embrace it, you know, because it's happening.
The culture on different chains is known to be very different, right? There's a discussion that happens there on like when you go from Ethereum or Solana or whatever, choose your poison. The culture is going to be very different. How, and this is for either, you know, well, any of you, from your perspective, is there one better than the other? Or how would you advise a person that's a new digital artist looking to get into it to pick the blockchain that they're going to be using it outside of Bitcoin, me saying it, you know, just from the perspective of the culture? I'll just leave it at that. From the perspective of the culture, what would you say?
Tezos.
Really?
No, I'll let someone else.
Is strong.
Tezos was fun. Tezos, I think I ended up like giving a lot of advice to people to not just stay on Tezos. I was like, this is good practice. You guys have a good time on here. But I feel like all you guys are doing is buying and selling from each other, and it's not going anywhere. I'm Iranian, so I talk to a lot of Iranian artists, and typically they would get stuck there because it was really comfortable. They also didn't have to come into American spaces and speak English. So they got really happy and comfortable just buying and selling from each other. And that was kind of part of the subculture I saw in Tezos. And I encouraged them to do it, but I went on Tezos quite a bit, but I wanted them to kind of come out of it. You know, it was like a fun place to practice, from what I saw. Ethereum was fun because it was the beginning of it. Me and Gabe kind of started together. So there was this culture of just us having clubhouse rooms, learning from each other. We had no idea what we were doing. I remember being nervous minting my first 101, and I did it live because Blau had promised to buy it. So there was like this euphoria around ETH that I feel like it's still in the back of my mind there, but there's some trauma there too because of us having that dopamine releases for 2 years and then for it to be completely gone and going like I miss ETH. I miss like that vibe. I miss that energy. When I was coming onto Bitcoin, there was a couple of things with me emotionally. One was because I was in that fear area for about a year, 2023 till mid 23. I feel like I missed that opportunity of being really early, and like I didn't take the risk of doing the OTC stuff. I didn't understand it. It scared me, and I was already in a kind of a funky state coming off the high of NFTs on ETH. And so once I started to come in, I felt like a baby, and uh I felt very intimidated. Everybody was smarter. Everybody was like, it wasn't like, I didn't feel like everybody was teaching each other. I just feel like they were already there. And now I had to kind of fit myself in and do it authentically. That was challenging. But once I got in, with Troy, was an amazing person to bring me in on board, and you guys know him. He's just so lively and excited and happy. He's like, "It's time you come on." I'm like, "Okay." So he slowly brought me in, and then I kind of fell in love with everybody. And yeah, they definitely are smarter than I am. Most of the people I met, I mean, including Billy, like they're just like these geniuses that are both artistic and technically savvy beyond, what I can really think about. Uh, but I'm glad I got on, and there I've had a lot of people holding my hands. You know, Snoop Toshi has been amazing. He was the first. He actually inscribed my first piece on Gamma before everyone else. Before I even came in, like months before I came in. And
Talk
then,
about Brainiac.
huh?
Talk about a Brainiac, Snoop Toshi.
Oh my God, yeah.
He's doing a million things all at once.
Yeah.
And he's always ahead of everybody, and he's also giving everything away. And so he's like a definitely a culture creator. He's building the culture, part of the building. So is Troy. So these guys that I've met and brought me on, and the guys from Gamma, like Eli, they're building the culture. And so to be a part of their journey has been cool. Whereas I feel like we were kind of part of that culture building on ETH.
Mhm.
Here we're kind of following and learning, which is cool too.
That's really interesting because you mentioned, Clubhouse swung right into like NFTs hard on Twitter, and you guys were early to that. I feel like Ordinals and Bitcoin, because there was a degree of friction, it allowed people to also feel like they were early to something and build the culture that they wanted to see. Maybe take the best parts from over here, the best parts from over here, and kind of do things a little differently. And I do think it is different, and it is probably the most diverse culture. There's the degen aspect, there's the hardcore art collector. I feel like you get a good mix of everything, and it's just kind of undetermined where it will go. And I think that's just a really special origin story where it's like it was just kind of high friction. People could feel early, but you could still get involved and still be early pretty much. But I thought that was cool because it was just one of those opportunities where it's like you have a chance to define what this kind of culture looks like. And I think that was pretty fun. So I've always tried to, inscribe thoughtful stuff that I would collect myself, and just kind of that's how I've rolled with it.
What do you see as mistakes made? Because I just remember even in April or something, like right before the happening or whatever, it was like it feels like they're making a lot of the same mistakes
Yeah,
ETH
no,
made, and
yeah,
like it was
sure.
like there's I love who doesn't love euphoria or like being in these pump times? Like it feels so good, but you also, I'm sitting here just like these same people are going to be complaining about floor prices in a month type of
Yeah.
thing if it doesn't go right. And I kind of think like you need the speculators, but it felt like it felt like Ordinals went through in about 4 months what Ethereum took a year and a half to
Yes.
get to, and then now I'm just curious to see like how you think it washes out.
Yeah, no, that's a great take. It definitely speed ran a lot of cycles on ETH, and that's fair criticism. I think like just having so many derivative projects, just in general, it's just a lot of waste of fees, waste of money, waste of space. We just don't need a million derivatives, and people spin those up, just try and make a buck, and then they just kind of go to zero over time. I think because the protocol kind of launched as just like, hey, this is cool. It was a bit incomplete at the time as far as on-chain metadata, so we kind of drifted towards some centralization as far as Magic Eden and kind of people controlling the JSON files, which kind of define what's in a certain collection. I feel like if that was a little bit more fleshed out at the beginning, we'd have to rely less on centralization. So I think that's one of the kind of things that kind of got wrong. Yeah, I mean, there's some things here and there that are kind of getting patched up, but yeah, you can't say we learned completely from all the mistakes made on other chains, but I think people are at least aware of them. And I think that's kind of the start of like fixing and doing better, just kind of acknowledging, what those issues were, what the problems were, and just kind of trying to mitigate. But with something as free and open as crypto, where you can pretty much do anything anywhere, a lot of that kind of comes with the territory. And a lot of it is just noise. But man, I think it's Sabet. I was kind of, when you were talking about your house or your studio getting filled up with physical pieces, it just made me think of like just this digital era. And then Gabe, when you were saying like these kids, you don't have to convince them, they're just growing up with it. It's the same reason Amazon is the juggernaut it is today. Jeff Bezos was like, "Whoa, I can fit way more books in a online library than a physical library." Just that thought alone, I think that's really cool with digital art, because you're traveling abroad, you can just pull out your phone and show people your like your digital original artworks that you've collected. And I think that's just really cool because you can have an infinite amount of digital space and take it everywhere with you securely. And I just think that's so powerful. We shouldn't have to be convincing people hard, right? That's just incredible technology. And I think it'll just happen organically. So that's why I'm in it for the long term. I'm going to be here for a long time. And yeah, I guess you don't have to like convince people hardcore. They're just eventually going to come around at their own time.
I tell you this something about, I'm very into energy healing and energy and manipulating the matrix and playing with energy and all of that stuff. And something about physical stuff that can, I'll tell you a little story. One of my best friends about 2 weeks ago had this little book with him, and it was called The Beginner's Guide to Advanced Magic or something. I'm like, what are you doing with this? And I was like, it's not even him, right? It's not his style or whatever. Some book like that. And then I end up getting it. And then as soon as I get it, I start having all this weird bad stuff happen. And I haven't even read it, right? And yesterday something horrible happened. I'm in Arizona and something really horrible happened to me. I got away from it, and I'm lucky to be here. But I'm like, he was the first person I called. I'm like, I'm getting rid of this book as soon as I can. So I somehow in the hotel, I like literally had to get rid of the book. I'm talking about like, I don't know if I'm being superstitious or what, but I had to physically get rid of this book to feel better. Um, So I don't know. There's something about us having physical stuff that's good and bad, other than just storage, because of the energy it holds. And I don't know how. And I know that digital stuff holds energy too. Obviously, I've done healings over the air. People have said my art is healing. I did a whole project called Healing Codes. That's my light language, and you can see it on healingcodes.io. It's I feel like people have bought them and they're like, oh, that helped me with healing through my, I don't know, emotional stuff or physical stuff. And so I feel like the energy is still held in the digital stuff, but physical, yesterday I found out it's a little bit harder to get rid of something physical because you're like, where do I put this?
I mean, you're totally right. I think we're in like the hybrid era. Like I read my 4-year-old physical books. I listen to like 20 audiobooks per year. Like, you buy a piece of digital art, you might get the physical along with it. I think we're kind of in that like transitional hybrid era right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I will say, for an artist standpoint, I think digital art just has the potential to reach so many more people. I mean, just even doing Instagram, it's like I could be up in every single gallery in San Francisco and have less people see my art than one post on Instagram. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like, or X, and then you throw in like actual digital ownership. But like, I know Sabet and I have both been in billboards around the world. I got to participate in the Venice Biennale because of NFTs. Like, I just think it it's gonna be a lot easier to have your art seen if you're in the digital space than it will be as a physical artist, at least for the vast majority of
For
people.
sure.
It's the digital era, right? In to your point, kids now are growing up in a completely digital world. My kids know the world a lot more, from a different perspective than I ever did, because they have access to a whole lot more, and the games that they play, their entire life is gamified, if you will. Everything that they do in education is gamified, and everything has to do with their digital identities, etc. So yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask about just this week. I've been hearing and seeing a lot of artists talk about how all-time highs for Bitcoin means that here we go, all of the artists and all of the grifters that were leaving, and for two different reasons, but they left during the bear cycle, are going to start coming back this week. And a lot of artists I've heard from their side, of the hardships of how freaking hard it has been the last year. So, but you talked a little bit about it, but how freaking hard it has been to be a digital artist and be seen and continue doing the work that you were doing in 2021, if you will. How has it changed from your perspective? What has kept you here and running and continuing to be successful? Because you all have been through this cycle, and I haven't seen you go anywhere. And you are one of, you're the exception. You're one of the few that hasn't ended a project or gracefully exited or said, I'm going back to a full-time job, or whatever the case may be. That is incredibly hard, and hats off to you. But how'd you do it, and why'd you do it, and what keeps you here?
I'll speak for myself. I think early success helped a lot, because I think if it was just based on the last year or two, or you were just getting in now, it's a lot harder. I guess, to Billy's point, like, I think this is going to be a very important space for years and years to come. So to me, I think it's a lot of the people maybe think of it as this is a one-time thing, or this was like a tulip frenzy or whatever it was, versus like, I think if you have the vision of this being for me at least, I have a vision of this being a very important thing, similar to like MP3s. When I was in college, we'd rip them, and it was pretty hard to get like old like live Pearl Jam songs, and you'd rip it onto a CD and feel yourself like, I did it, I did the thing. Whereas like, and I still think we're there, particularly with Ordinals. Like it's the level of friction. Whereas no one is an MP3 musician now. My kids only know music through Spotify, essentially, and like so. I think similarly, like you know, I see the vision of why it matters, so I'm willing to put up with stuff. But from a mental health perspective, and Sabet and maybe Billy can see it, like it's been pretty horrible for artists in a lot of ways, just because of the transparency of the blockchain. Like before, if I sold a painting, no one ever knew if I sold it or not, or let alone the exact price it went for. Um, and I think when you have the bear market we've had, where very few artists have kind of been able to keep up their value, that's not great for your self confidence when there's things outside of your control kind of affecting like how you're perceived, or the you got to have a lot of internal like I'm worth it, I'm good enough, like people like me type of feeling about this, because otherwise, it doesn't shock me that a lot of people left, and it won't shock me when a lot of them leave next time if we're in a bear cycle. Like most of them will leave again, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for me, going back, it's always been different paradigm shifts in my life of being able to do things. When I started selling, on Instagram, I started doing these things called flash sales, where I would paint, 100 pieces and sell them in a month. And I would do all one-on-ones and sell 5 a day for about a month. And the first time it was all physical on paper, so it's very, very difficult to do that consistently. Because I would have to paint them, take pictures, edit them, bring them into my store daily, put them in the store, essentially like what we would do minting here. I'd be painting and then taking pictures and putting them online for people to purchase, especially in off of Instagram ads and everything else. And not ads, but just posts. Uh, I did that for since 2016. So I did that from 2016 to 2019. And by the last year, they were all digital paintings. So I was already painting digitally because of the speed. I didn't have to edit or shoot, and uploading them and getting them ready for sale was easier. And I would paint them ahead of time instead of the days that I was selling them. So my flash sales became kind of my thing, but they also were training ground for NFTs. Once I came into the NFT world, I already had probably about 500 to 700 pieces that were digitized, and I knew which ones would do well because I'd sold a bunch of prints from them. Uh, then moving on to NFTs, doing really well, early success, like Gabe said, really helped with knowing that there was a huge paradigm shift of knowing that I couldn't have ever possibly done that well in the physical world based on where I live. I'm a father of three. I can't get around to different shows, and I can't travel all the time. So for me, it was really important to be still home and working hard and getting it out there, and uh, to be able to sell thousands of NFTs, if not over 100,000 at this point, are in wallets. It would have never been possible in a physical realm, no matter how many shows I hit. And so once that paradigm ceiling is broken, there's no way of going back. Like, what am I going to do? Go back and sit at GameStop and draw for people, which is one of the things I would do. I would do these shows at like different brands, like Mont Blanc and Furla, and where I would paint on purses, or I would draw for people on postcards, which I still do to this day on the street when I meet people. But like from a standpoint of making a living, it was nearly impossible. um, just so you can hope you sell a physical painting at some point, or even the flash sales. I would basically sell 150 paintings, and then I would have to print them out, sign them, build the boxes, roll them up, put them in sleeves, and then draw on the boxes just so people can get them. And that was a lot of work, and the financial return was nowhere near what we have today. So I had become basically a shipping station rather than an artist. I was more focused on trying to get things out to people versus being able to paint. And again, once that ceiling is broken, you're never going to be able to go back. So you got to make this place a home and figure out how it works out, when things aren't doing as well. And I also believe that you create your own path. If you look around and go, oh, the economy sucks and I'm not going to do well, well, you're not going to do well. But if you create your path of saying, you know what, the economy sucks for everyone else, but I'm still going to be doing okay. And you'll end up doing okay. Last year, I did this year. I've done 4 projects. 3 have been, technical fails, and 1 has been pretty successful. Uh, but I keep going because 1, I don't have anywhere else to go. Only, this is the next, whatever comes from here is what's next.
I find it really interesting. I'm going to take advantage of this moment because I find it's not common that I end up with a panel of parents in the space. I'm a parent myself, and I see so many other creators in the space that take full advantage, as they should, of not having a family and being able to travel and to meet people and to do as much as they possibly can within the 24 hours of the day. They're spending 23 hours grinding and meeting and doing things. Is that is that like a once in a lifetime opportunity? I want to get your perspective, because I know that I talk to other parents in the space, men and women, and they're like, shit, if I could do this all over again before I got to this point in my life, does that ever occur to you, like what this opportunity, what today opportunity is for the younger generations, for the artists that are just starting out? Is this a limited time opportunity, or does this continue to work for them?
Yeah, I feel like, a lot of us parents, I feel like talk about like how some of these maybe like single people, they have an edge. They could stay up till 6 in the morning, like jumping on opportunities and looking up pumped up fun tickers. Like, you cannot do that and then take care of a kid. So, yeah, no, I think there is definitely an advantage there, and I feel like a lot of people are taking advantage of that. I definitely grinded super hard in my 20s and in the commercial art industry, and just got my ass kicked every single day, just delivering television spots and just working in commercial advertising. So in a way, I grinded on those opportunities. But yeah, crypto especially. I mean, if you have time to keep your ear to the ground in certain Discords and Telegram chats, you can be rewarded handsomely. But that is a huge time investment. You can't just half-ass that. You have to be kind of like all in. Don't worry, we get wrecked there. Yeah.
I know you did, Antoine.
Yeah, you have to get wrecked. Yeah, I feel like people treat it like they're a VC. You spread out some opportunities. 5 of them fail, 1 of them succeeds, and then that winner pays for all the losers. But yeah, I definitely think that's an advantage for me specifically. It's this year's all been about like rebalancing work-life balance and just making sure I'm putting enough energy and effort into the things that are most important to me, because we definitely don't want to lose those.
You led me straight into my next question, which was going to be, how do you do that? Work-life balance.
I think everyone has their own formula. Maybe I'll let these guys chime in.
For me, my wife started working a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. So, and then my kids go to school, and my 2 older ones drive. So they take the younger one to school. So I'm not missed during the day. So what I do is I work pretty much from, let's say, 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. I sleep until noon, work till I got to pick them up around 3, 4 p.m. And then, I have a lot of energy because I've been sleeping. And I cook for them and I take care of them and I look like I'm a present dad and husband. and I take my wife out, everything, right? And then repeat the cycle. So I've created this weird thing where I'm not missed because
Wow.
they don't see me working at all, but I'm always working.
What do you do on the weekends and on the holidays?
I'm on my phone, or I have like, I even bought a Samsung phone that I can flip open and I can paint in. So, so I don't look like a crazy person at like family functions. They just think I'm looking at my phone while I'm painting like a piece. But, that's just me having to paint consistently. Like I have to be drawing and painting all the time.
Okay, what about you?
I've set aside 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. as just family time. So similar to my kids are in school by 8, so from 8 to 5 I get to work pretty hard and tend to do it, and then from 9 to 1 a.m. I can work if need be. But I guess I just view this as the long game, and I think you I think I did grind 2021 and 2022 and set myself up by saving a lot of the money financially. So
Mhm.
maybe that I don't have to grind like that anymore. I know that there'd be opportunities by grinding that much, but work life balance means a lot to me. My kids are 9 and 11. It's like, right now I'm still like their favorite person. And so like while I have these precious few years before they're like full on teenagers and who knows what happens, I'm just kind of cherishing it and knowing that if I don't get as much money as some of these people are getting currently, it's made up for by the fact that I've got a very strong family connection, and things run very smoothly. My wife is like most supportive, amazing wife ever. My kids are great. So like I think it's just like taking appreciation of what you have. I think this space thrives on FOMO, and you're always going to feel like I even think if you're grinding, you still are going to feel like that because there's another Telegram or another Discord or something that you could have been, or you could have been in Singapore or yada yada. So like I think it's the inevitability of this space, and I think for me it's coming to terms with like I'm going to miss out on a lot of things, but I'm also going to the things I do work on, whether it's fusion with Billy or, you know, long conversations with Sabet during the day. It's like I'm going to enjoy myself and, let the chips fall where they may.
Sabet, are you heading to Marfa next week?
I'm not. I didn't even know what that meant until just recently. I still don't know what it means. I just what does it mean? Maybe you guys can tell me.
You're already in rural Arizona, it sounds like. You might as well go to rural Texas. You're so close.
Yeah? Is it?
Yeah.
So, Marfa, for those who don't know, Marfa is an actual city in Texas, way out in the boondocks of Texas, close to El Paso. No one goes there unless you want to, be out in the desert and destination. You know that it comes out on like Instagram and social media and stuff. There's this tiny little, I think it's Chanel store. Prada, yes,
Yeah.
Prada, yes. So it's an art installation out in the middle of the desert where you can see a tiny, tiny little store, Prada, in the desert. You ever seen that?
I saw a picture.
Okay, so that is in Marfa. So people make it a destination to go out in the middle of the desert in Texas to go to look at this tiny, tiny little store. It's not an actual store; it's an art piece. Stand in front of it, take pictures, and look at the stars. So. Art Blocks, led by Eric Calderon. Eric lives here in Houston, which is where I am. I interviewed him a while back, and so I know this. Used to go there with his family, started making art there, decided that this was going to be the art destination for Art Blocks, and started opening it up to all of the art community. And to this day, I think it's the 4th annual, if I'm not mistaken, Art Blocks weekend. To which artists head to talk about art and deeply talk about art, right, Gabe?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
but particularly generative. I think it's like it leans that way. Just a quick shout out. I mean, I think if we were gonna say, he might end up being the patron saint of this digital art space as far as like, I don't know what your experience interviewing, but the times I get to talk with him, I'm just so impressed. Such
100%.
a good person.
Snowfro?
I'm very happy. Yeah, Snowfro. Just very happy that he's kind of in a position of power within all of this, because like his heart actually seems like in the right place, which, you know, for people, sometimes success gets the better of people's ego, particularly in this space, but he's pretty phenomenal.
He's very humble, which I appreciate, you know, and is able to talk about the success that he's had here has been almost accidental, in which it wasn't anything that he was like going for. He didn't do any of what he did with generative art because he thought this is something that people are going to like. He did it because he truly believed in it, and it was innovative, and he thought that it would be different. And then it just kind of, you know, grew legs by itself, which I think is really cool. I'll tell you what, because of my conversations with him and because of the respect that I have for him, just recently, I believe it was either this week or last week, my days are blurred now, but there was an announcement that OpenSea has partnered with Art Blocks. And given the history that OpenSea has in Web3, I immediately said, you know, without seeing the other half of Art Blocks, just seeing OpenSea, I said, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not paying attention to that. But because it came tied with a partnership with Eric and with Art Blocks, I think, all right, I'll kind of give it a chance. Like, I'm now interested to see if it comes vetted from a person that I highly respect in the space, and I'll give it a chance. I'd love to hear your perspective, though. Gabe, I saw you laugh as soon as I mentioned OpenSea.
Well, just it's interesting. I think Sabet and I probably are top 3, top 5 as far as artists on that made their living on OpenSea. Like most of the top artists kind of made it on Super Rare or Nifty Gateway, and Sabet and I were like one of the few that kind of viewed it differently, and then it maybe viewed it wrongly, it felt like, after a while, because like everyone I dealt with got fired, and I was like thinking like, this is gonna be the Amazon, like this is gonna be the winner. And so when you see your thesis totally not be the case, I'm just laughing with full humbleness of like, I would tell everyone like I don't know if Super Rare is gonna last, but OpenSea has enough billions here that they're going to last. And so like to me, it's just kind of funny seeing it kind of round trip and back, and now they've got a good partnership. It's interesting because I think greed kind of got in their way and made them make a lot of the mistakes they have, which feels like kind of the opposite of Art Blocks. Their problems have almost been because they were too like artist and art centric and put out maybe too much stuff because they wanted artists to thrive while things were hot. And so it's an interesting pairing to me when I think of like kind of the people have been the anti-greed people meeting the greed folks. But it's just a hard one for me to ever trash OpenSea because I am where I am today because of OpenSea.
It's a really good perspective. You know, I mean, I think we all have to realize that it was the right decision for you at that time, right? It was the right thing to do at that time, and you live and learn. And I will say it's incredibly smart for them to pick someone like him and to pick, you know, a name that's well loved and well respected and means something in the space. Kind of makes you say, all right, well, if they were able to convince them, then I'll give it a chance. So here we are, round tripping that entire OpenSea experience. And now I'm like, kind of interested to see what you're going to do outside from, you know, the TGE that everyone thinks that they're going to be doing. What else are they doing? Why in the world would they be partnering with such a pioneer in the generative art space? I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation, maybe too little, too late.
Yeah.
Like you can easily just total up their 2.5% fee on all of Art Block's collections and see that they've made tens of millions of dollars off of just being, a conduit for people to buy and sell. Yeah, we'll kind of see. I don't think it seems like they were kind of asleep at the wheel for years, and now they're like, all right, we're going to take on Magic Eden or something. But the proof will be in the pudding. They've made plenty of mistakes along the way. So yeah, they got a lot to make up for. We'll see what happens.
They sure do. All right. So I want to remind everybody that we're giving away Pizza Pet Allow List today. So if you are in the crowd, we're going to be doing 5 away in the live stream and 5 away in the actual space. For the space, drop a comment with your address, with your Taproot wall address in the comments, and we'll be picking 5 people. And then for the live stream, the first 5 people to drop their Taproot wallet address here in the comments, I will take a snapshot of it and you'll be able to get the whitelist for the Pizza Pets. So that out of the way, Sabet, tell us what you're doing right now, how we can continue to support you. What do you have going on right now?
So I have a Bitcoin project that's live still. It's called Ultra Kitties. I launched it probably about a month ago, and we opened it, and I have not still closed it. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but it didn't mint out. But it's an art project, so I'm like, you know what? We gifted everybody who bought at full price on day one, and then cut the price in half, and then I reopened it for people to collect. So that's ongoing. I might close it soon, but nobody's complaining, and I haven't even activated trading on it. I'm just kind of seeing how people respond to things right now, and it seems like finally people are coming around to knowing that I'm an artist and it's not about trading and all that stuff. So that project is really a test on and a testament to the fact that people tend to understand if you kind of keep going the way you do. I'm also dropping something on AVAX on November 11th. It's called Bad Bunnies. It's all part of the Tokyo Punks world. All of this stuff is under the Tokyo Punks IP. I'm also excited to announce that I just signed a contract with a pretty big licensing firm to take the entire licensing responsibilities of Tokyo Punks for the physical world. So they're going after, toys and
Wow.
clothing and all of that stuff. And my whole goal with Tokyo Punks and dropping these projects on different chains has been to build far and wide audience for the brand and for all the characters and the story. So I've been telling stories by these drops. Bad Bunnies are the bad guys, and Ultra Kitties are the AI companions to these characters. So I'm just kind of building up this story through these drops and seeing where it goes. But it's working. Getting this licensing deal was a pretty big deal because of what's happening here.
Congratulations on that. That's amazing. Yeah, I love how you operate on different chains, and I love how you bring the love of art into it. Right. Every time I hear you speak, you talk about that, and that really resonates. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I love what you're building. Billy, how about you?
Gearing up for Marfa next week. Been feeling super inspired lately. This year has just been a lot of like community management and Discord. Got a little burnt out. Was just kind of in the weeds. Just deep in a bunch of stuff. So I finally feel like the tank is full and refreshed. Right now I'm working on an edition that I'm going to drop through Gamma and kind of in deep development for kind of what I'm going to bring in 2025. If you know me, I'm constantly trying to learn, and the next thing I do is always I try to make it the best thing that I've done. So kind of in that zone, and it's freeing just to be able to create with no intention. Like I've just been posting just wild explorations and just kind of it just feels freeing. And it's just funny when you get to a point where you post something and someone's like, "Oh, is this a collection?" It's like, no, I'm just riffing on stuff, man. Like it's what I've been doing forever. not everything has to be sold or collected, or. But yeah, it's definitely a freeing place to be, and I'm just excited to have that kind of uncapped, like, carte blanche to just do whatever I want.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. You're one of those giga brains in Bitcoin that, yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're one of those mixtures that Gabe was just saying between, or maybe it's about of like the artist, but you're not just an artist, you understand the blockchain technology and the dev perspective from a very different way than I do, than normies do.
I mean, he gets to like really explore the canvas
Yeah.
beyond how we can, right?
Yeah.
Like I get to draw on my iPad and I'm like, okay, let's inscribe this. Whereas Billy gets to like really explore the microcosm of that canvas, and that's awesome.
The layers of it, yes.
Yeah.
And explain why you did things the way that you did and why you chose things the way that you chose them. And to even know that those layers exist is, hats off to you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Trying to keep the brain active so I don't get into too much trouble, firing up and minting Cat 20 tokens and shit like that.
The last time that I saw you, Billy, in person was in NFT NYC, and we were on the bus together for Pizza Ninjas.
That was so fun.
It was super fun, but I had no voice. Like, I could not speak. And worst of all, from the Pizza Ninjas event, I was going to the conference at NFT NYC, where I was going to be on stage interviewing Matt Meddev of NFT Now. And I had no voice, so I was trying to conserve it. And Billy was the nicest of a human being. to not, laugh at me when I was like, Billy, I can't really talk. So,
awesome.
yeah. So thanks for being a good human being.
Easy.
For sure. And Gabe, what are you up to right now? And how can we continue to support you?
Today dropped some coffee with it's called Denim Coffee. It's Hod'll Be Thy Name is the person who owns the company. He's been one of my top collectors, and so we made something called Wake Up Juice. It's a coffee with my art on it that you also get a physical art. There's a golden ticket in some where you get an NFT if you get the golden ticket. So pretty fun, gamified, but it's also on physical, it's actual really good coffee. So doing that, I'm doing something with Rarible next week. That's an experiment. It's just one image I did that's going to be an open edition with kind of hive mind is the thing, but the goal is to take like the money, and for like 1 month we're gonna let people figure out what meme coin or how to invest the money from the drop, and we're gonna then redistribute it to people afterwards, which might be $1 or $0 or hopefully a lot of money. They're just playing with some new DeFi tools, and since I know almost nothing about DeFi or meme coins, I was like, let's see if collectively everyone can figure out the best way to use this money. So just kind of a fun, interesting way to play with meme coins. And so working on that, and then hopefully, like I said, I work on art all the time, but just trying to figure out the best mechanism. So I'm going to be picking Billy's brain for some ordinal stuff I have on the brain, and kind of going from there. I'm in sort of Billy's same thing. I make art every day. I love to experiment. I think just trying my best not to drop 8 million NFTs when it feels like sometimes hard not to drop stuff. I've been pretty good the last couple of years of being a little bit more thoughtful when I drop stuff.
Well, I don't know. I kind of like you dropping stuff, so.
All right, done. done. I know I got to get out of my own head. I mean, I talk about mental health, but like some of this is just like getting out of your own head of like when for a couple years everything I did sold out instantly and was worth double instantly. And so you kind of get in this mindset of like, it's so easy when you go to conferences and you made a bunch of people money, you feel like a hero. And then for me, it was like when prices went down, like I didn't have the same confidence when I was seeing people. It's like, sorry, like I think that's just being honest. Like
You should
it's
never
just like
have
a harder.
to apologize for that.
Yeah, it's hard as an artist. You almost feel responsible for secondary, but honestly, we should really only be concerned with primary. People are just projecting
100%.
their own stuff on you. Keep going, keep creating. I think with Bitcoin, it's since you have to typically pay up front to inscribe things. I feel like it kind of forces you to be a bit more thoughtful. You can't just like spam the chain with stuff. So that's kind of helps me just kind of organize my ideas a bit better. But yeah, man, you can't hold yourself responsible for secondary actions, people with weird expectations.
Yeah, no, it's not fair for you. And, it shouldn't ever be an expectation. I know that it is of so many artists that feel that way. But truly, look, if you're going to collect art, you're going to collect it because of the art, right? And the price of it should be inconsequential to any of that. So personally, I like to continue seeing you, Gabe.
All right, it was an interview and a counseling session, and I appreciate it. So I will take it. I will start minting some more. I will inscribe, and I will let you take the credit to the three of you.
There you go. There you go. Thank you guys for joining this counseling session. It has been amazing to catch up with you. If I'm going to see you at Marfa, looking forward to it. Sabet, you continue to have a very good trip. Sorry that we're over here talking about Marfa and you're not even going to go over there, but it would have been great. Maybe next year.
For sure. It'll be fun. Thank you. Have a blast. Thank you for having me on here. Thank you for your support always and collecting. It means a lot. I never forget, especially the early days. Every single piece that was collected was incredible. So I appreciate you and thank you for having us in the space. It was awesome sitting next to Billy and always my good friend Gabe. And I can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Listen, if this is your first time tuning in, If You Know, You Know show is on all of your favorite streaming platforms. We do this show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am Belle. Thank you for spending the last hour and a half with us. If you didn't know, now you know, baby. I'll see you guys next week. Have an incredible rest of your day. Peace.